The moment my brother accused me of poisoning my own company in front of 37 people, my mother smiled like she had been waiting her whole life to watch me fall. She called it a pressure test, but her smile disappeared when my fiancé opened a sealed evidence cooler and proved they had staged the entire scandal themselves. My name is Maya Serrano, and that night I learned the most dangerous people in your life are not strangers. Sometimes they are the ones clapping while your life burns. It happened on a cold October evening in Portland, Maine, inside the old harbor cannery my grandfather had turned into an event hall before he died. Outside, rain slapped against the tall black windows. The harbor smelled like saltwater, diesel, wet rope, and seaweed. Inside, the room was warm with candlelight, clams steaming in copper pots, fresh sourdough stacked in baskets, and trays of smoked salmon moving through the crowd like everything about our family was refined and respectable. But behind the candles, champagne, and fake family smiles, they had already planned my destruction. The dinner was supposed to celebrate my grandmother Josephine stepping down from the board of Serrano Tideworks, our family's seafood smokehouse and cold chain logistics company. My grandfather built that business from one fishing boat and a leaking freezer trailer. By the time I was 31, I had turned it into a regional supplier for restaurants, hotels, and boutique grocery chains across New England. The moment I became valuable, my family stopped seeing me as a daughter and started seeing me as an obstacle. 3 years earlier, my grandfather left me controlling interest in Serrano Tideworks. 51%. Not because I was the oldest. Not because I begged for it. Because I was the one who had spent my 20s sleeping in the office during blizzards, rebuilding supply contracts, replacing broken refrigeration units, and creating a traceability system that tracked every crate from boat to delivery. My brother Nolan did not just resent me for inheriting control. He believed my success was something stolen from him. Nolan was the golden child. The charming son. The face of the family, according to my mother Eleanor, even though he had never managed anything more complicated than his own bar tab. He had the kind of confidence only spoiled men have when they have never paid for their own mistakes. When Nolan wrecked a company truck, my mother blamed the mechanic. When he lost $30,000 on a failed seafood pop-up, she called it entrepreneurial courage. When he insulted employees in front of customers, she said he was passionate and I was too sensitive. My father, Arturo, had a different weapon. Silence. He never attacked me first, but he always made sure the attackers had room to swing. He would stare into his coffee while my mother and Nolan tore me apart, then pat my shoulder afterward and whisper, "Just let them talk, Maya, you know how they are." I did know how they were. They loved public humiliation because public humiliation trained everyone else to obey. Every family dinner became a little trial. Every holiday became a performance review. Every mistake, real or invented, was dragged out in front of relatives and employees and dismissed as a joke or a test. When I got engaged to Theo Park, they found a new target. Theo was calm, observant, and almost impossible to rattle. He worked as a maritime insurance investigator, specializing in refrigerated cargo claims, food safety violations, and warehouse fraud. He understood temperature logs, chain of custody documents, port surveillance systems, and the quiet paperwork criminals always underestimate. At the time, my family thought Theo was just quiet. What they did not know was that quiet men collect evidence. At first, my mother pretended to adore him. She called him serious and useful. Nolan called him clipboard boyfriend behind his back. Then the jokes got sharper. At Easter brunch, Nolan asked Theo if he was marrying me for love or a lifetime supply of cold storage. At my birthday dinner, my mother asked whether Theo had signed anything promising not to interfere with family governance. At a board lunch, Nolan raised a glass and said, "To Maya, who turned fish into spreadsheets and somehow convinced people that counts as leadership." Everyone laughed. I smiled. Theo watched. And we started taking notes. Because by then, I knew something was wrong. Not emotionally wrong. Criminally wrong. 2 months before the retirement dinner, one of our junior warehouse supervisors quietly warned me that Nolan had been visiting the cold storage facility after hours. He was not authorized to be there alone. He claimed he was learning operations, but the night shift workers said he spent most of his time near the quarantine freezer, where we stored rejected product pending inspection. Then a strange thing happened. A crate of scallops from a trusted supplier suddenly failed a temperature audit. Then another. Then a shipment of smoked haddock disappeared from the tracking system for 6 hours before reappearing with altered logs. Then an anonymous complaint landed with a regional grocery chain claiming I had been falsifying safety data to protect profit margins. The pattern was too clean. Theo reviewed the documents and said one sentence that made my blood go cold. "This is not negligence. This is staging." So we did the hardest thing possible. We let them keep thinking they were winning. By the night of my grandmother's retirement dinner, they were not planning an argument. They were staging an execution. There were 37 people in the cannery hall that night. Relatives. Board advisors. 2 bank representatives. 3 restaurant buyers. Long-time employees who had known me since I was a teenager carrying invoices in waterproof boots. My grandmother sat at the head table wrapped in a navy shawl, tired but proud. My mother sat beside her in pearls, smiling like royalty. Nolan moved through the room in a tailored green suit, shaking hands, laughing too loudly, already drunk on attention before the first toast. Theo stood near the back wall, quiet, wearing a charcoal coat and watching the room with those investigator eyes that never missed anything. I could feel it before Nolan even stood up. That strange silence people create when they know someone is about to bleed. Then Nolan tapped his champagne glass, and every conversation in the room died at once. "I want to make a toast," he said, smiling at me. "To my sister Maya, who has spent years telling all of us she is the only person smart enough to protect Granddad's company." A few people chuckled nervously. I did not move. Nolan lifted a folder from under his chair. "And to her fiancé Theo," he continued, "the insurance detective who apparently thinks sleeping with the CEO gives him permission to rewrite safety records." The warmth left the room so fast it felt like someone had opened a freezer door behind me. Forks stopped moving. My grandmother's face tightened. My mother leaned back in her chair, satisfied. Nolan opened the folder and held up printed pages. "These are temperature logs from the quarantine freezer," he announced. "Altered entries. Missing hours. Product marked safe after exposure. And surprise, surprise, the audit trail leads straight back to Maya's executive credentials." Someone gasped. One of our buyers lowered his glass. Nolan turned toward Theo with a cruel grin. "And is it not convenient that her fiancé investigates refrigerated cargo fraud for a living? Tell me, Theo, did you teach her how to fake it, or did she teach you?" My mother laughed first. Not because the accusation was funny, but because this was the part she had been waiting for. Then she lifted her champagne glass and said, "Sometimes leadership needs a pressure test. If Maya has nothing to hide, she should not be offended." That sentence landed harder than the accusation. Because everyone heard what she was really saying. Destroy her in public. Make her panic. Make her look unstable. Force her to surrender control. My father stared at the table. My aunts looked away. Nolan kept smiling. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but my hand stayed still in my lap. I did not cry. I did not defend myself. I did not beg anyone to believe me. Because what they thought was my breaking point was actually the exact moment we had been waiting for. Then Theo moved. Slowly. Calmly. Like a man who had already seen the ending. He walked to the center of the room and placed a small white evidence cooler on the table in front of Nolan. The latch clicked so loudly it sounded like a gunshot. "Nolan," Theo said, "before you continue accusing Maya of falsifying safety records, you should know that the crate you tampered with was never part of live inventory." Nolan blinked. My mother's smile faded just slightly. Theo opened the cooler and removed a vacuum-sealed evidence bag. Inside was a blue plastic crate tag, a tiny temperature logger, and a printed chain of custody sheet. That crate was bait, Nolan. And you touched every part of it. The room froze. Theo looked directly at my brother and said, "You did not just move a box. You walked straight into every camera, every badge log, and every timestamp we needed to prove what you were doing." Nolan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Theo turned toward the room. And because Serrano Tideworks is a regulated food facility, every person entering the restricted storage area signs an access agreement acknowledging video monitoring, badge tracking, and audit retention. This was not private surveillance. This was company security inside a posted restricted zone. Then he took out a tablet. My mother stood. "Theo," she snapped, "you are embarrassing this family." "No," I said, standing for the first time. "He is documenting it." Theo tapped the screen. The speakers in the hall crackled. Then Nolan's voice filled the room. Clear. Arrogant. Unmistakable. Once the freezer logs show Maya's credentials, she is finished. The buyers will panic, the bank will freeze her, and the board will beg us to take control. Then my mother answered, calm as ice. She does not need to be guilty. She only needs to look guilty in front of the right people. A sound moved through the room, half gasp, half disbelief. The recording continued. Nolan laughed. Once the buyer pulls the contract, we tell everyone Maya created a compliance crisis. We offer to buy her shares before the state inspection goes public. My mother replied, and if Theo interferes? Nolan said, we make him part of it. Say he coached her. People believe dirty stories faster when there is a romance angle. Then my mother said the sentence that destroyed them. By Christmas, Maya is out. The private equity group takes the company. Nolan gets his payout. I get my board settlement. She gets a lesson in humility. Theo stopped the playback. Nobody gasped this time. Nobody moved. The room was past shock. It had reached horror. For the first time in his life, Nolan looked like someone had handed him the bill. My mother looked around the room, searching for one person willing to rescue her. Nobody moved. My grandmother whispered, Eleanor, what did you do? My mother pointed at Theo with a shaking hand. That recording is illegal. You trapped us. Theo did not blink. No, Eleanor. You were not recorded in a bedroom or a private phone call. You were recorded inside a restricted food facility, standing under posted surveillance signs, while planning a crime. Then he opened the second folder. These are the forged temperature reports Nolan prepared. These are the altered back-end entries. These are emails between Eleanor and the private equity buyer discussing a distressed share acquisition. And these are the bank notices triggered by false compliance claims. I looked at my brother. You did not want the company, I said quietly. You wanted to ruin it badly enough that I would be blamed for saving it. Nolan finally exploded. You think Granddad wanted you? He shouted. You were just the useful one. The boring one. I was supposed to inherit the name. No, my grandmother said from the head table, her voice shaking but sharp. You inherited your mother's greed. That broke him. And right when Nolan opened his mouth to lie again, blue lights washed across the rain-covered windows. The side doors opened. 2 state food safety investigators entered first, followed by a Port Authority fraud officer and 2 uniformed police officers. Behind them came our company attorney, soaked from the rain, carrying a black binder that looked heavy enough to crush someone. My mother sat down as if her bones had disappeared. Nolan stepped backward. One officer said his name. Then my mother's. In front of 37 witnesses, they were both escorted from my grandmother's retirement dinner. Nolan screamed that I had set him up. My mother kept saying, "This is a family matter," as if felony food tampering, forged compliance documents, and attempted corporate sabotage became harmless because we shared a last name. They put Nolan in handcuffs beside the raw bar. The same raw bar he had planned to use as scenery for my humiliation. My mother was led out past the framed photo of my grandfather opening his first smokehouse. She refused to look at it. After that night, their empire did not collapse slowly. It folded like wet cardboard. Within 48 hours, Nolan's access to company accounts was frozen. Within 1 week, his permits were suspended. Within 1 month, every supplier who used to smile at him stopped answering his calls. The private equity buyer withdrew and turned over communications to investigators to protect themselves. Our insurance carrier opened a special investigation and denied every claim connected to Nolan's staged contamination reports. The board removed my mother unanimously. My father resigned 2 weeks later after admitting he had known something aggressive was being planned but chose not to ask questions. That was his whole life in one sentence. He did not do the stabbing. He just held the door open for the person carrying the knife. Nolan's seafood pop-up collapsed first. Vendors blacklisted him. The refrigerated trailer my mother had secretly purchased for him was seized to cover restitution. The man who tried to frame me for food safety fraud became untouchable in the food industry. The system Nolan mocked became the system that buried him. For years, Nolan called my traceability systems boring. In court, those same systems documented every forged entry, every unauthorized badge swipe, every staged crate movement, every attempt to frame me. Nolan pleaded guilty to conspiracy, evidence falsification, and food safety fraud. He served 28 months and was ordered to pay restitution he will probably be chasing for the rest of his life. My mother avoided prison, but not ruin. She received probation, a massive civil judgment, and a permanent ban from holding any officer role in a food-regulated business. And me? I kept the company they tried to steal, the name they tried to weaponize, and the future they thought they had already taken from me. Not because I wanted revenge more than peace. Because protecting what you built is not revenge. It is responsibility. Today, Theo and I live in a small cedar house overlooking Casco Bay. On quiet mornings, we drink coffee while the fog rolls over the water and the fishing boats move like shadows through the gray light. Serrano Tideworks is stronger than it has ever been. We expanded our employee ownership program, opened a new cleanroom processing line, and built a scholarship fund in my grandfather's name for kids from fishing families who want to study logistics, food science, or marine sustainability. My grandmother still visits the facility every Friday. She walks slowly now, but every employee stops to greet her. Sometimes she touches the old brass sign near the entrance and says, "Your grandfather would have slept better knowing it ended up with you." I sleep better too. Not because my family changed. Because I stopped waiting for them to. So if your family keeps calling cruelty a joke, listen carefully. They are not testing your loyalty. They are testing your pain tolerance. If they laugh when you are humiliated, believe them. If they stay silent when you are attacked, believe them. If they only respect your success when they can control it, believe them. Toxic families do not always destroy you with shouting. Sometimes they destroy you with smiles. With public jokes. With little tests. With traditions designed to keep you small. They will tell you loyalty means silence. They will tell you forgiveness means surrender. They will tell you protecting yourself is betrayal because they were counting on your guilt to keep the door unlocked. Protect your peace. Protect your money. Protect your future. Because blood does not give anyone the right to destroy what you built. Put your ownership in writing. Secure your accounts. Keep records. Hire the lawyer. Save the messages. Document the threats. Do not rely on blood to protect assets that blood relatives are already planning to steal. Real family is not the person who shares your last name while sharpening a knife behind your back. Real family is the person standing beside you when the room turns against you. The person who protects your peace. The person who tells you the truth without trying to own your life. Putting yourself first will feel cruel only if you were trained to abandon yourself for other people's comfort. You are not selfish for walking away from people who would gladly destroy your future to protect their ego. You are not cold for building boundaries strong enough to survive their manipulation. And you are not wrong for choosing peace over a family system that only loved you when you were useful. So put yourself first before they turn your hard work into their next opportunity. Because sometimes justice does not arrive as revenge. Sometimes justice arrives as documentation, locked doors, signed papers, and the quiet courage to stop protecting people who never protected you.